Let's take a look at how we can use a technique which we learned in the previous movie with this photograph. This is a photograph of my mom, and she's always saying, "Christopher, can't you remove my wrinkles?" So here you go, Mom. We'll take a stab at it. And the way that we'll do that is first we'll duplicate the background layer, and then we'll double-click that layer name and call this one Wrinkles. Next, I want to zoom in a little bit on the image and make sure we have the clone stamp tool. Use that blending mode of lighten. What about opacity? You want to bring this down to 10, 20, 30%. And it will really depend upon the intensity of the wrinkle and the brightness of the image. So you want to try something relatively low at first. Now we want to have align turned on, sample all layers. Next, for your brush size, we want a really small brush size. And here, I'll zoom in even further so we can see this a little bit better. I want a brush size which is just about the size of the wrinkle there, and then you Option or Alt-click to set your source area and just start to paint over that. With a lower opacity, what you can do is paint back and forth over that area multiple times in order to progressively take that out. And what that will do is it allows you to really maintain a nice look with the skin, so you can see how it isn't really changing the character wrinkles that we have there. It's just taking out the intensity of those. Now, I should point out that this is one of those techniques which isn't super fast. I mean, it takes some time. You can see I'm going through this wrinkle by wrinkle or blemish by blemish, just looking to reduce the intensity of this area. I should also point out that if you want to work more quickly, you just increase your opacity. So here I have my opacity at 17. So that's allowing me to make really subtle, kind of natural results. If you're in a little bit more of a hurry, we'll just crank up that opacity for the value there for the tool. Well, if we look at our before and after, you can see how I'm taking out those wrinkles without sacrificing the natural character line. So it still really looks like my mom. It's not like I've removed all these years off of her. Rather, it's just I'm just taking out the intensity of those wrinkles. Now, the other question may be, well, can I use this technique in combination with other techniques? For example, let's say we're working on a wrinkle, and we realize, you know what, I kind of also want to deal with some other blemishes. Could I go in there and use one of my other tools, maybe spot healing brush, and deal with a few little things I'm noticing in the image? By all means, this isn't a technique that you're going to use by itself. Rather, it's one of those techniques that you'll use in combination with others, which will help you to achieve really great results. Well, because this technique, I think, is so helpful, and at least that's what I've found and what other students that I've taught have told me, let me show you this on one more image to make sure we have it. I'll go ahead and open up that other image. This is a portrait of one of my daughter's preschool teachers. And here in this image, I'll zoom in really close so we can see this up close. We'll duplicate the background layer. That is step number one. You can't work on a blank layer. It's got to be a duplicate layer. Go ahead and rename the layer something that makes sense to you. Here, I'll call it Wrinkles. Next step, clone stamp tool. With the clone stamp tool, we're choosing our blending mode of lighten. We're starting with a lower opacity. Here I'll go a little bit higher just to show you how we can work a little more quickly. And align turned on, and all layers, it doesn't really matter because there aren't any layers above where I am. Then I like to change my brush size with the bracket key. Left is smaller, right is bigger. And I'm going to go ahead and paint back and forth over a couple of these wrinkles that I'm seeing. Because this is on a separate layer, it's still a non-destructive workflow. In other words, if we decide, you know what, we went too far, we don't like the results, we can always undo this layer or just delete the layer or make changes to it. And here I'll go over these wrinkles just a couple times so that you can get an idea for how this might look on another image. I want to work over here in this area. You Option or Alt-click to set your source, and then you make your way over the wrinkles. Now, as I mentioned before in the previous movie, this is one of those techniques that takes time. So it's just a matter of taking your time, using a small brush, and then working on all the little wrinkles a little bit at a time. If you make a mistake, you can always undo what you've done. You can also try using a different brush size. Sometimes if you have a little bit of a larger area, like right here, maybe what I'll do here is just use a little bit of a larger brush on that, and then go with the small brush to get out the little wrinkle that we have there. And with this, I'll go ahead and paint over that. And just keep going over there. And I think I'm coming to a stopping point because you're getting the gist of this, right? You figured it out. This is how it works. Work on those little details. And as you're working, you shouldn't see anything that's super drastic, super noticeable, anything over the top. It's all really nice and natural retouching. And in this case, you can see in just a minute or so how I was able to use that technique in order to take these wrinkles out. And of course, you always want to zoom out and just make sure it looks good as you step back from the image as well. If your wrinkle reduction is too strong, just drop your opacity down. So you can always just drop that down a little bit and it will still hold up. It will still just take the edge off the wrinkles. Or if you need more, you can always boost that up in that way too.